Welcome to episode 19 of Should Have Listened to My Mother. I'm Jackie Tantillo. Today's guest is an award-winning reporter and storyteller who has a passion for writing from the heart. She's garnered a number of awards, including Emmys, the Edward R. Murrow Award, Gracie Award, and an honorary doctorate of journalism from St. Ambrosia University in Davenport, Iowa. She is talented, creative, and sensitive, and she's a friend. Dawn Fratangelo, welcome to Should Have Listened to My Mother.
Oh, thank you, Jackie. It's my pleasure to be here.
Dawn and I studied at New York State University at Plattsburgh. It does not seem like yesterday, but it was a lot more.
We were just freshmen.
It was just a couple of years ago.
Yes.
But Dawn, you concentrated more on communications and TV when I went into the radio TV production route.
Yes.
So, Dawn, you've covered stories, everything from floods to Hurricane Katrina, Columbine shootings, Mount Everest, Afghanistan, Iran, Tony Blair in London. You started as a news anchor in Plattsburgh, right? Then you did Boston, San Diego, New York City.
I did. I just want to clarify, I wasn't in Afghanistan or Iran. After September 11th, they needed someone in London, and so I was the only correspondent in London and all of Europe for that entire time. There was concern, I remember, at NBC for letting females into that area after 9/11, and it took some months to let females into that area. But I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh, yes, please. Absolutely. Correct me anytime you need to. You started as a news anchor in upstate New York, right, where we went to school.
Right, in Plattsburgh. And actually, I started as an intern for the 11 o'clock anchor. Barbara Marr was her name. And I really helped her produce the 11 o'clock show. She would say, okay, these are the tapes I'm going to use, stories. I want you to kind of, if it was a story that ran 1:30, she said, okay, I want you to cut this down to 45 seconds. And so that would be a voiceover and a sound bite. And so I would do all that, and I would write it out, and then I would go and edit the whole show for her.
Wow, that's great. Look how much you learned, right?
I know, right. And I ended up replacing her.
I bet you did.
And I never in my entire life thought that was going to happen. There was an opening, so I thought I was applying for a job as a reporter, and someone in-house was going to replace her. And so when I got there, I was told that they were considering me for the anchor job. And the general manager and the news director said, well, we want you. And I was just blown away. And we have a mutual friend, Mary, and I remember when I was staying with her and her now husband in their apartment, and she said, oh, my God, you got the job. She said, how much money are you making? I said, $10,500. Oh,
my gosh.
She said, $10,500? You're not even going to be able to wear anchor clothes for that amount of money. You're not going to even be able to buy clothes. I said, I know my parents are going to they're going to have to help me.
Oh.
And it was so true. I didn't know how to ask for money. And I was flabbergasted that they offered me the anchor job. And so were a lot of other people. I wouldn't say they were flabbergasted. I would say they were very angry at the fact that I got the job. And these were people that I had gone to college with, and I had been on the speech team with, and I didn't go in there looking for the job. The job was offered to me, and I would have been an idiot had I turned it down.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was hard to start that way when classmates that you had graduated with were,
jealous,
throwing darts at you. Yeah.
And
I just decided it's like, it's not me. I'm just going to put my head forward. I'm just going to look straight ahead and walk straight ahead and just do my job. And that's what I did.
Oh, that is so fun. $10,000 a year. That's the best 10 grand. Look at so have you PTZ TV you were always with NBC, weren't you? NBC, MSNBC? Or not so much?
NBC, no, NBC, and then I went from there to a CBS affiliate in San Diego.
Oh, okay. And was Chicago NBC as well?
Well, I was working as an NBC correspondent based in Chicago.
Oh, okay.
So I covered 15 states for the national NBC news department.
So you were on Dateline, Nightly News with Brian Williams, The Today Show, Chris Matthews on MSNBC, just to name a few. I mean,
I did everything.
You did everything. What a
I feel
life.
like I've done everything.
What a life. What an amazing life this has been.
It's been great.
So
it really has. I feel very fortunate. I've done more than I could have ever imagined. And I had a great time doing it. I learned a heck of a lot about our world and our society, and I've met a lot of incredible Americans.
That's probably the best part, meeting those incredible Americans. My guest is Dawn Fratangelo, and we are talking about the journey that we've had and how we got there on my podcast called Should Have Listened to My Mother. I'm Jackie Tantillo. So, Dawn, you're used to being the one asking the questions, so now it's time for me to ask you some questions.
Okay.
Here we go. It sounds cliche, but life is a journey. Among the things that define our journey is who we allow into our lives. Who's that one person that's been our rock or thorn in our side that motivated us to become the person that we are today, motivated you to become the person you are today?
Oh, there's, it's just hands down, no question. My mother, Irma Jean O'Connor.
And are you who you are today because of her? I usually ask because of or in spite of, but I guess I already know the answer to that question.
Oh, because of her. No question. Because of her.
What kind of role did she play in your life, your mom?
Huge! It was so huge.
She's no longer with us, your mom.
No, she's no longer with us. She died 6 years ago on March 21st. Yeah, she was something. She was hysterical. She could be raunchy, but especially when she was with all her sisters. She was one of 7, and there were 6 girls. Yeah, but when all those girls got together, oh my God.
Where did she grow up? Because you grew up northwestern New York, near the Finger Lakes?
In central New York, yeah. It's in central New York, and she grew up in the same town.
Oh, what fun.
Yes, it's Savannah, New York, like Savannah, Georgia. And it's named actually for the savannas that are there. When you look out there, it's kind of swampy land, but there are all kinds of beautiful birds. And my stepfather there's now an Audubon Center there, and he built that, but he didn't live long enough to see the final project. But it's just this beautiful area, a lot of farmland, that's just a beautiful farm town. You're not far from Lake Ontario, and you're not far from Key Village.
So what was your mom's childhood like with the 7 kids in this beautiful rural farm area?
Well, they had a farm. They grew up on a farm. And it's funny, I don't know which of the girls did any farm work. I swear to God, I really don't. I know that by the time my Aunt Doris was born, she was the last one. She was a tomboy. And so she did a lot of farm work, and she loved horses. But, I mean, looking at photos, all of my aunts and my mom, they were into, it was the 40s and yeah, the 40s and getting into the 50s, and they were all dolled up, always with lipstick on, and maybe they got eggs in the morning, but I don't know what else they did on the farm. But maybe they went and got eggs in the morning. But I know that during and after the Depression, my grandparents took on people who needed work, and they needed work on the farm. And so there are many photographs.
What were they growing? What was their crop? Did they rotate crops?
They rotated, I know my grandfather rotated animals. So he had a potato farm and some livestock. But after he sold that farm, he changed livestock. So we had chickens, and then we started out with pigs. They were fun. When they moved, and then when my parents split up, we moved in with them. And that was very hard for my mom. I think, my mom was very proud and beautiful and really wanted to get married, really wanted to have a family, looked forward to that. She was the yearbook scribe. She was the one who wrote the story about everyone and how, and I know how hard that was for her to move back with her parents and 3 children.
So your dad, your biological father, left. You have 2 siblings.
No, my mother left my father.
Your mother left your father. How old was your mom with 3 children and she moved back in with her parents?
She was 28 years old.
And where are you in the birth order, your 2 brothers and yourself?
I'm the youngest. I was 4 years old.
Do you mind me asking why you left?
Oh, my dad. He was drinking too much. He was in the Air Force, and it was just a raucous household.
For a long time.
Yes. And he was drinking too much. And drinking and hitting. He never hit me, but I was the only person in the household he never hit.
Oh, Dawn. I'm so sorry. Well, how did she muster up the courage to do that? Were the girl, her
She'd
sisters?
had enough. She just had enough. I mean, my mom, I don't know when that abuse started. My brother Dennis, my middle brother Dennis, who has passed away, was a sickly child. He had asthma for years and years, and thankfully he outgrew it. So he needed more attention, and my father hated that, and just because he got more attention, which is silly. So I think it started there.
Jealousy. He was jealous, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then it escalated, and then began to involve both my brothers. And but I just think I probably was too small. Yeah. Or I found good hiding places because I was small.
Your mom, thank God that she left, because very often it's too hard to leave. Women don't know how to leave.
Right. But my mom also was always she doesn't take crap.
Thank God.
She was always a whippersnapper. I'm sure it took her a while, and I'm sure she was just devastated because, it was they got married in the late 1950s, and that was every girl's dream, right? Get married.
Your high school sweetheart.
And also to her high school sweetheart. And seriously, my father wanted to be a priest. and he was a good Catholic boy. And something in, I don't know, where along the way, I once asked him that, and I don't think he could answer it, but when he went to Vietnam, but this was before Vietnam, it became even worse. But there was just something. Maybe he just wasn't cut out for, they were very young when they got married. Maybe he just wasn't cut out for it, and he certainly never drank that much when he was in high school. Or, when you become adult, you become an adult pretty quickly,
And 3 children to provide for.
Right.
But I'm not making any excuses for him or his
I
behavior.
think for both of them, and I think that's what they thought they wanted. So she went home, and we moved in with my grandparents.
And they were happy to have her. They took you guys in right
away.
Right. Fantastic. Yeah. So now, how does one recover from that whole episode physically, emotionally? Did she have to go get a job? How did she reason to you guys? Did she defend him? Do you remember?
We had been doing a lot of moving. So I remember being very sad leaving my father. And I remember my brothers being a little bit, and then being very clingy to Mom. And then my mom letting me be sad leaving my dad. She let me have my emotions. Later on in my life, I thought, wow, that was very good for her to do that. Because, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I think we all kind of settled in. I don't know that we all liked being living with our grandparents. And I remember I wasn't yet ready for kindergarten. So, this was kind of confusing for me. But my brothers, I remember, went off and my mother went and got a job.
Doing what?
There was a very large, it was called the Newark Developmental Center. And it was a very large facility for the mentally retarded. And there were many different divisions of it. There was a hospital, and my mother eventually, after probably about 4 years there, went and worked in the hospital, and that's where she actually spent most of her time there, and she worked there for 24 years.
This is Newark, upstate New York?
Yes, in
right,
New York.
Near Savannah. Okay.
Yes, it's about 25 miles from home.
Okay.
And from Savannah. And she drove there every day and back through all kinds of snowstorms and what have you. And so she started out as I don't know her position, but basically she worked in a children's ward. And it was, often bathing, making sure that they were clean and also interacting with them. My brothers and I used to tease her that you have more patience for the kids, at work than you do for us. She said, well, you guys are smarter. You guys have, your cognitive level is much higher than theirs, but don't give me that crap. But she was so amazing with these children, and she brought each one of us individually to come and see her kids, and she wanted us to understand that every child is normal, that every child has the right to be seen. It's the right to be seen as a child.
And these were children on every range of the spectrum of mental illness.
Every range of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. Some of them had Down syndrome. Some of them were mildly retarded. And I use that word. If some people listening are offended, I apologize. I'm using the verbiage that was used during the time that my mom worked there from the mid-60s to the 90s. And the sad thing is that some of them didn't belong there. Their families dropped them off when they were very young and rarely came to see them. There were some nurses who would bring them home. And my mom she just adored them. So when I came and she introduced me to her favorite young girl, and my mom had done her hair especially how the little girl wanted it to be done. And we were about the same age. And so Mom did my hair the same way, and it was so sweet. And at first I remember being really nervous because she wanted to touch my hair all over. And Mom said, "Oh, don't be nervous. She just wants to touch it." And so I just closed my eyes and I just let her touch it all over. And I opened it, she was right in front of me, and she was just beaming. And it was just, my mom had learned in such a short amount of time. She wasn't a professional at it, but she took classes to the point where, and tests to the point where she became a therapist assistant.
But it's interesting. It basically comes from the heart. You could have every degree and read every book, but your mom, that was just, the icing on the cake. Your mom already, it was intuitive in her, and that's such a gift to have as a mom. The love that was there in her heart was huge.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
What was the glue that kept you four together, I should say, but what, especially because I know that you're very close with your mom, what was it? Any one specific thing?
Well, she's very funny.
Mm-hmm.
And she loved to laugh. My mother's second language was laughter. She loves to laugh. And she just loved sitting, having conversations, and if she could, just making someone laugh. Even if it was a serious conversation, just breaking it up a little. She just needed to make sure everyone was happy. And she never wanted an evening to carry too much weight. I mean, she could be serious, if she needed to be serious, but she really wanted, especially if we were all together, she wanted it to be happy. And she was just, and her laugh, she had a cackle, and she loved to sing. And I brought her to a karaoke party one night. There were about 70 people in their kitchen, and my mother stole the show.
What did she sing?
Everything. No one could get the microphone away from her. And she was swaying and just singing, and we just let her go. It was so fabulous because we kind of knew, and this was after she was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so it was the woman who owned the house who had her and her husband have all these TVs set up. They don't anymore because I just loved it too, and they said, you should bring your mother because I know that she loves karaoke because she was here once years ago and she loved it. And I said, you know what, you're right, because music, there's something about music in people with Alzheimer's. They connect to it. And she knew, without sometimes even looking at the screen, she knew the words to every song. And she was in her glory. So, but God bless her, you know what? She did it.
She was your rock.
She was amazing. And she taught us to be strong. And how to jump over hurdles. And she married this amazing man. It's just an incredible father figure to us. And the most important thing about him is he loved my mother so much.
What was her go-to, like her security blanket when she was going through all these tough times after having to leave your dad? And what did she rely on? Family, friends, religion, spirituality? I know the humor was really important, and humor is very healing. But were the things that got her through this really challenging time for a single mom, basically, right?
Yeah. Me?
Yes, I bet it was you.
I had conversations with this grown woman that I don't think a lot of young people would have ever had. And I'm sure some young people do. I think I got her through some really sad times.
Just by listening?
But by listening and also, begging her to hold on. Yeah, she had some really sad times.
Who took the biggest brunt of the responsibility once you moved in with your grandparents your brothers and yourself? Did one of your brothers, I'm assuming because they were older, pick up the mantle of being the father figure, the dad, or they ran?
I never realized that my oldest brother was very smart and very involved in sports, very involved in astrophysics. He was in 6th and 7th grade, isn't that wild? And my middle brother, I was close with both of them. But interestingly, I was closer with my middle brother than I realized. I didn't realize it until later in life. It was funny. But I was with them both. They were close, but they fought all the time. But I don't know that either one of them knew how to be the strong one. I would say that my middle brother Dennis was trying to be the strong one for Mom. And for me.
That's so hard for kids, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's too hard.
And he was also struggling because we now know, because we later found a diary of his at that age that, he believed he was gay, and he was gay. And so I can't imagine that, all of that coming to, just crashing together in his thoughts. It's a lot for him to handle. But he was always my protector. And sometimes I didn't realize it. Sometimes I thought it was my older brother, and then really what it was really my middle brother.
Dennis.
He was Dennis. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we all had a lot of fun. We had, Dennis and I started with 2 rabbits, and we ended up with 42.
I was going to say, and I'm sure someone told you they were both female.
And we used to play, I noticed, football with them, but we didn't toss them. They were the ball, and they ran, and so we would just tag them with the football. Mom would play that game with us occasionally. When we left our grandparents and she felt like she could now afford to, she had worked her way up and got enough raises and we could afford to live in an apartment. So I'm skipping the whole thing about my father kidnapping my brothers.
Regularly or just occasionally?
No, that happened.
Once or many times?
And my mother got my brother Dennis back, but not my brother Martin. So, yes, my father kidnapped my 2 brothers. He meant to kidnap all of us. And my mom, in a coup, not a coup, but I swear, it was just crazy. It was just crazy. So my father, when he came back from Vietnam, he came back an even worse alcoholic. But I didn't like the guy that Mom was dating. He planned to kidnap all of us, and then he learned that I was gone with Mom somewhere. And so he kidnapped the boys, brought them to Florida, kidnapped them from the high school where we grew up. Martin had played basketball, and so after the basketball game, he'd already had had their bags packed, and we took off, got on I-95, and started driving to Florida. And Dennis was screaming at him. Dennis said he was yelling profanities at him. God damn you! What are you doing? I'm not going to live with you. And that was so Dennis. God bless him. I shouldn't say that, but I mean, this was not cool. This was not in a divorce decree. And it was kidnapping, just because they didn't like the guy my mom was dating. So anyway, my mom and God for all the sisters.
Did they go down with their shotguns and go get Dennis back?
Oh yeah, they went into action, and one of my cousins dressed up like a high school student. They waited a few days, went to the school. They found Dennis's school, which was still like a middle school. And my cousin found his class, and like I said, she was dressed like a middle school student, and knocked on the door and said, "Hi, I found Dennis Fratangelo and Charlotte, and told him he's supposed to come here and ask us to give it to us." And the teacher called Dennis, and it turns out that my father's wife's son was also in the class. So my father married a woman who had 3 children as well, and was planning to adopt them. And so he's in the class, and so he's talking to the girl who has his wallet, and then he sees Dennis leave with the girl who has his wallet, who's our cousin, Brenda. And so Dennis leaves, and they hightail it, and Mom's in the car. And she says, "Where's Marty's school?" And he said, "I don't know." So they can't find Marty's school. And so then they hear on the radio there's an ATV out for my mother.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, these are high crimes. I shouldn't say this, but it was, this was how crazy it was.
But Mom will do anything to save her children. You kidding?
Yeah.
He's lucky she didn't kill
she
him.
had fun, she would have found Martin's school and would have taken him as well.
Yeah.
Well, my father didn't fight back for custody of Dennis, but he fought for custody of Martin. And it was only just years ago that I got the documents. Martin kept saying, "I never testified." And Dad said, "Well, Dad and his wife said he testified." He never testified.
Oh, my gosh.
He never testified that he wanted to stay there. Ever.
How many years?
And in the court documents, he never testified he wanted to stay. So Mom lost custody of, and they lied. But she was a small claims judge in the county, and so she just threw out those document papers regarding custody. There are so many false statements. Martin hasn't lived with them for 3 years, and 2 days after he graduated high school, he got on a plane and came back.
And he had no contact with your mom for those 3 years? Or did he?
They wouldn't let him write. They wouldn't let him do call. I think maybe he called once.
So he didn't know that your mom tried to get him back? Or he did know?
Well, he did, but he was told that, he was told all kinds of lies. It messed him up. It's terrible.
How could it not mess you up?
It was.
What about your mom?
I don't, the thing is that I don't understand how you can say you're a parent and hurt and lie to your child. And I know that is bad. They're all gone now.
Thank goodness.
And that just crushed one.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. How did your mom survive during those years without having him and not being able to be in touch with him? That is devastating.
And it was devastating. Yes, absolutely. It was devastating for the 3 of us.
For everybody.
For Martin. He's never been the same, Marty. He's never been.
Does he have a family?
I have a niece, and he was married. They're not married anymore. They're divorced, but they're on good speaking terms. And his niece, Stephanie, I'm extraordinarily close to. She's lovely and just
So your mom was strong
Strong.
and had a big heart, a great sense of humor, and she did more than the best that she could, right? She tried harder than most moms or families try, right? To do the best by you guys.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. And there's one more thing about my mom.
Well, wait a minute. I also know she was a huge sports fan outside of the basketball. Because I know you're a big baseball fan, or you were.
Oh, she was ridiculous. She was crazy. She was a crazy person. You could hear her, everywhere. When I was cheerleader in basketball, there was this area of the bleachers called Section 33. And people would dress up in the same outfits, and they'd have, posters, Section 33, and they were loud as heck. And sometimes there would only be like 4. Other times there would be 33 people just going berserk. And my mother would be loudest. And so I was a cheerleader, and people would bend over and say, "Oh, I hear your mother's here." And yeah, she was nuts. And she'd be screaming at the ref, "What's that?" Oh my God. And if I would say that as a cheerleader, I'd get a demerit, like a 4-point demerit. And, there was a chance I wouldn't be able to cheer the next game. And it's only one time I got it. And it's because, I could hear my mother in my ear the whole time. And so it's like, this was funny. This was at a high school. It was a regional game. And it was early in the game. And I can't remember if someone threw something at the ref. I don't remember. And, but anyway, someone was yelling at the ref. And I think first someone threw something at the ref, hit the ref in the head. Great shot. But he got mad, of course. Mm-hmm. Turned around and said, "I don't want him. This game is just starting, and we're not going to start this way. Knock me off." And then he turned around, and my mother, I heard it loud and say, "Hey, ref, you got to get another eye because you're a psychopath." I was like, "Oh, my God. She's going to get thrown out. She's going to get thrown out." He turned around, and he looked at, like, one of my best friends, Jen Stein, and he said, "You, out of here." What did I do? I didn't do anything. He wasn't going to give my mother up. And my mom said, "He didn't do anything." And he got kicked out. Oh, I was like, she got another guy kicked out.
Did you encourage her to date?
No.
You didn't want her to?
I did not like any boyfriend she dated at all. If I found their numbers, I tore them up. I was evil, Jackie. I was evil. If I found the numbers, I ripped them up. Every single one of them. I had no desire to see her date. I guess what it was is, maybe it was the first couple of guys. I just wasn't interested. I felt, I was too young. I was afraid of losing her. I was very clingy. And, I was just 4 years old. And then I didn't like it at all. And I found her birth control pills once.
Oh, my gosh.
And I popped them all out. I popped them all out and flushed them on the toilet.
God. How did you know what they were? I guess you're very smart.
This is not going to happen. I said,
Mm-mm.
He was so mad at me. But, I wanted her to be happy. I wanted her to find someone who is worthy, in my opinion.
Did you ever lie to your mom?
Very rarely, because if she caught me in a lie, I was in so much more trouble. Very, very rarely. I'm sure I did, but very rarely. She was one of those moms that, it's like, call me if you're in a jam, if because I'd rather come get you than have you drive home with a maniac. And she meant it. She said, I'm not going to go nuts. Call me.
What a good mom.
Right?
What a
Instead of getting
mom.
all
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Instead of driving with someone who is really, because I did that one night. I was like, I told her, I said, this was crazy, Mom. You wanted me to be home at a certain hour, and I drove with a maniac.
Yeah, that's not good. If there's anything that we talk to our boys about over and over again is please always just call us first. No matter what time, I don't care where you are, what you've been up to, who you're with, just call us. And that's the one time you hope they're listening to you, no matter how many times you tell them that same thing, you can figure out the rest later. Just let's get you home safe. That's the most important thing. My guest, Dawn Fratangelo. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your stories of your mom, Irma Jean, her wisdom, her sense of humor, her love, compassion was a real role model for you, as was your stepdad, Harold.
My pleasure, Jackie.
So it was at this point of the conversation where Dawn and I had spoken for quite a long time, and she had another appointment, so she needed to get off the phone. And she then turned around and asked me a question as I kept my Pro Tools recordings so I could capture any extemporaneous conversations that we may have. And she asked if I was there when my mother, Linda, passed away. And I said no, but she was in great hands and it was very peaceful from what we were told. And then she told me about a wonderful conversation that she was having with Irma Jean a couple of days before she passed, when she was very lucid. And apparently she had been speaking with Harold, her second husband, who was the love of her life, and Dawn loved and cherished as a stepfather, a very important figure in her life. And I wanted to share her last couple of minutes of this lucid conversation where Irma Jean was very much at peace about her next journey.
She was so lucid. I don't know, we had this conversation probably 4 or 5 days before, maybe 5 days before. But she had talked about this a lot, and so she'd been having conversations with someone. She'd definitely been having conversations with Harold. And she said, "Oh, Harold, not that," And it was so cute. I mean, really cute conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And laughing up the storm, like laughing. And then she was talking with someone else. And so I wanted to ask her, so now you're talking with Harold. I said, you were talking with Harold, huh? Yeah. I said, you're talking with someone else. Who else are you talking to? The man. And I said, the man? What man? The man, Donnie. And I said, I don't know who you mean, but the man, he's been here. I don't know how many times. You ever seen him? I said, no, I haven't. Wait. I said, is he here now? Yeah. I said, what does he want? I said, it's not so much that he wants, it's just that it's going to be his way.
What was the last thing you just said?
She said, it's just going to be his way. And I said, his way? What do you mean his way? His way. It's just, it's just going to be his way. And I said, are you afraid of him? She said, no, I'm not afraid of him. Like immediately. I know, that was like immediately, like, no.
Was she spiritual? Your mom, or religion play a part of her life?
I mean, she was spiritual, but she was also afraid of death. And when I asked her if she was afraid of him, when she said no like that, it was like, well, good. I mean, I thought to myself, good, that she's not afraid. And I said, well, what do you mean that it's going to be his way? And she said, well, that's just how it's going to be, honey. And so that made me feel really good, because I had a talk with her neurologist, because I didn't want her to be afraid. One, Mom could, just Mom herself could be afraid. The death, I knew, scared her a little bit. And then with her Alzheimer's, she could fixate. And I didn't want her to fixate on death. And then it turns out I didn't have to worry because there were things that were happening, beyond me that were helping her.
Well, she certainly seemed at peace with it, right? She wasn't
Absolutely. 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 And that made me so happy to think that she was guided and it was easy for her. And she said the only thing she was worried about was me and the house and how much work I was going to have to do on the house. I know. It was so classic of her.
That's so great that you had this conversation with
I know.
her.
And she was so lucid, and the most lucid she'd been. God, I thank God for that. I do.
That's a gift.
Oh, my Lord. It was amazing. It was amazing to be able to have that. And it was extraordinary to go through that process with her and to be able to talk to her like I used to and to be able to laugh at her like we used to and both get the same joke. And for her to let me know that she wasn't afraid and that where she was going was a peaceful place. And that helped me so much. And I know that she knew she was helping me.
So that's, I think, a pretty good indication of a mom still trying to do her very best up until the very, very end, or the new beginning, depending how you look at it. I'm Jackie Tantillo. Thank you so much for listening to Should Have Listened to My Mother.